The crane dance proposing for discussion is unique for Kalmyk tradition. Let me remind that Kalmyks are the oirats of Western Mongols who settled in the territory around the Volga and by agreement with the Russian government formed the Kalmyk Khanate in 17th century. The Kalmyks brought to these vast steppes their nomadic economics, nomadic statehood structure, and their traditional worldview. I was lucky to document dance imitating cranes from Kalmyks born in 1920s. Despite the fact that there is more of a childhood memory, the video recording of these samples turned out to be a valuable document for highlighting important elements of this form. It's known that similar imitation of the crane, voice, and dance were found in many geographical places. Cranes of various species are found throughout most of the world, and they have attracted human attention in many historically known societies. Cranes were associated with the ideas of good fortune and well-being. Zooarchaeologist Nerissa Russell discovered signs of the veneration of cranes and presumably evidence of crane imitating dance back to Neolithic times. Thinking about significant symbolic importance of cranes, Nerissa Russell emphasized striking similarities between humans and cranes. Cranes are bipedal, their size approximates a human, their lifespan is more than 40 years. Cranes form monogamous pair. They have extended period of juvenile dependency. The couple is the building block of crane social organization. The most important crane dance, as many researchers agree, crane dance is social. Crane dance not only for breeding in pairs, but also by whole groups throughout the year. So dance is the way to communicate in a group or even to communicate with human. Here I must mention impressive work of George Archibald, founder of the International Crane Foundation, and his experience to communicate with crane. All this ornithological information turned out to be extremely important when I started to analyze traditional narratives around crane dances in Kalmyk culture. It convinced me of the rational and real facts behind the traditional knowledge. Moreover, live ethnographic materials turned out to be urgent in our time. Indigenous knowledge, the idea of interrelationship of a human and the surrounding nature should be in demand for supporting ecocultural worldview. I briefly present you the traditional perception of cranes among Kalmyks, based on interviews and folklore texts. It's believed that crane can affect someone's fate and bring unhappiness. Here on my slide, you can read the translation of the wedding long song performed at the bride's taking away from her family. The poetic formula heart-killing Togrun, crane's black tongue, is connected to the word haral, literally curse. It was believed that to make a curse, someone had to smear its tongue with black soot. So in this long song, the tongue of crane is of black color as covered with soot, and crane's voice bringing sadness. This image is similar to the same in the Celtic culture, associating cranes with negative power and bad luck. The Kalmyk oral stories can give a kind of explanation. In oral stories, cranes described as sensitive and tremendously child-loving ones. Crane asks its Sayache, spirit patron, complaining why they have been given only one child. I, at the size of a ship, am giving only one child or two, while a sparrow at the size of a beetle has 20 or 30, who will follow after me, Whom will I see ahead of me? Among Kalmyks was forbidden to hunt the crane, and the worst thing is to kill the crane chick. The crane parent sends horrible curse to those who harms its hatchling. I would like to draw your attention how this early belief was revived in the 20th century, with the tragedies of revolution, civil war, and repression happened to Kalmyks. I will tell you the family story of Ekaterina Bogdaeva. Her grandfather's brothers accidentally killed the crane chick, so the crane sent curse to the entire family. Both brothers died. As about the grandfather, in 1920s he was exiled, and then in 1930s was arrested again for rebelling against the Soviet government. He was sent to the northern province of Arkhangelsk and deceased there. As Ekaterina Bogdaeva explains, such a fate happened because of the crane curse. Another idea of oral stories is veneration and praising of cranes. People recalled real geographical places, burrows, hills where they danced with cranes. Dances with cranes took place in early spring upon cranes' arrival and at the beginning of fall. As Bovushambekova recollected, early in the morning, her mother and little girls went to the hill. She sprinkled milk with her right ring finger, offered the poor sacred white food, tsakanidan, the fresh-made milk tea, red and white coins. Bowing and praying, they invited cranes to celebrate. When tune started, cranes would fly in and began dancing. Kalmyks believe that cranes understand the language of people. They recognize their particular crane melody and flocked to the sounds of crane dance. There are other recollections where children played with cranes. Ghilyana Dordzhieva, born in 1915, remembered children had met cranes in the steppe and danced themselves, imitating movements of the birds, and the cranes danced in response. Whether crane dance was a children's play or unique personal experience of communication with cranes, or traces of the ritual praising and giving respect to the cranes, the central element of these interactions was the music and dance. And the most significant fact that the music of crane dance, singing with dance or singing with dombra, elicit a response from the crane. Today, I will concentrate only on those forms when people dance, sing a special song, and shout like a crane. On the video from the settlement of the Yashko, you'll watch Kalmyks reproducing the crane dance, Dobro Nabi. The most convincing movement is of the oldest of the participants, Ghilyana Dordzhieva, born in 1915, who corrects the movements of her companions. Women move in a circle to the right, imitating birds' walk and making very short steps, leaning low forward and holding edges of the skirts in outstretched hands, imitating crane wingspans and accompanying the dance with the crane voices. In the song, crane is praised and encouraged to dance. Phrases or single words can be repeated in a free sequence. Dance movement accompanied by the even rhythm. I would like to emphasize that this type of movement and circular dance is indeed very rare for Kalmyks. It is a generally accepted opinion that the Oira did not have round dances, as there was no ethnographic evidence of its existence among Kalmyks. Presented video shows of the Kalmyk round dance associated with imitation of cranes. Dance movements accompanied by the song with even rhythm. The most significant element of this dance is onomatopoeia, the imitation of the crane voice. The same crane onomatopoeias, as you've just heard in performing of Kalmyk dance, were observed in the crane songs recorded from different ethnic and linguistic groups in Siberia. Also, dances with imitation of crane movements were documented in Northern Asia. There are mostly written descriptions, but let's watch the video of crane dance from Okinawa. In this performance, we will see similar movements imitating flaps of the wings and structure of the round dance, comparable type of singing, and the same onomatopoeia. If we turn to the ornithological observation, there are different classes of crane signals. In my case, I'm talking about Eurasian crane. Ornithologists distinguish such signals as loud duet called unison calls, mostly for pairs, pre-flight calls, scream-like distress calls, scream-like location calls, abrupt alarm calls, and loud flight calls and loud guard calls. Also, cranes use low, purr-like contact calls. We'll see the fragment with different signals voices. It seems that people in their crane dances imitate so-called contact calls. Presented video document of Kalmyk crane dance allows us to talk about Siberian or North Asian origin of this genre. It seems that in different ethnic traditions, crane imitating dance and singing refers to the earliest form of the culture. The similarity in the elements seems remarkable. It will be interesting to continue comparative studies. Thank you, and I'm waiting for your questions.